Breaking news: Eala shocked fans after receiving a surprise wildcard entry to the Birmingham Open, sending social media into chaos. But the real drama came before she even stepped on court. Just hours before her match, reports say the WTA tried to stop her from playing due to fitness concerns after a tough clay season. Eala refused to back down, signed a waiver, and chose to play anyway. What followed was a statement performance that turned into a title run and a viral moment, sparking debate across tennis about control, authority, and who really decides an athlete's career. Wildcards were handed out to local British players like Harriet Dart, Katie Swan, Alice Dunn, and Mika Stojsavljevic, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary at first. Then Alexandra Eala's name appeared not as a qualifier, but shockingly as the tournament's top seed facing Australia's Priscilla Hahn in round 1. What followed sent shockwaves through tennis. This wasn't just a draw update, it was seen as defiance. Just 48 hours earlier, the WTA had reportedly tried to block her entry. Rewind to May 30, 2026, when Eala arrived in Birmingham after a difficult clay season, including a first-round exit at Roland Garros. Despite a strong 14-8 hardcourt record earlier in the year, signs of fatigue had been building: slower movement, fading energy in long matches, and clear mental exhaustion. Former British number 1 Greg Rosetsky had already raised concerns about her stamina, and fans online were saying the same. But Eala didn't see a player breaking down, she saw someone who needed matches. That night, her team received a formal note from the WTA, politely advising her to withdraw from the Birmingham Open due to fitness concerns after her clay season and focus on recovery before Wimbledon. There were no threats, just a recommendation, framed as player safety. Still, the impact was serious. Ranked world number 42, Birmingham was a key chance to defend points and build form on grass. Pulling out would have cost her ranking, hurt her Wimbledon seeding, and shifted control of her career away from her own decisions. Eala didn't sleep that night. In her hotel room, she kept replaying the last 6 months: the shoulder injury that pulled her out of Cincinnati, the medical timeouts in Auckland, and the growing locker room talk that she might be pushing too hard. By morning, she had made a decision. She met tournament officials with legal counsel and requested a waiver releasing the WTA from responsibility if she chose to play, taking full control of her own risks and career. The document was prepared that afternoon, and she signed it without hesitation. Later that night, she posted a short statement on social media, 4 lines that shook tennis. She said she wasn't injured, just tired of pretending and tired of others deciding her limits. Within hours, it went viral, shared over 50,000 times, with fans flooding support across social media. The Philippine flag emoji spread everywhere, and even across locker rooms and practice courts in Europe, players were asking the same question: had anyone ever done this before? Defying WTA advice, signing a waiver, and still stepping on court. The debate quickly split the tennis world. Was Eala being brave or reckless? On May 30, 2026, in Birmingham at 9:17 p.m, she sat alone in her hotel room after a draining flight from Paris, still carrying the weight of a painful first-round loss at Roland Garros. She was exhausted and everyone could see it. Her 14-8 hardcourt record earlier in the year had hidden a deeper issue: constant fatigue that didn't show on medical reports but showed in her matches. The clay season had already taken a toll. In January, after the WTA 125 Philippine Women's Open, she dismissed fitness concerns, saying a brief medical timeout was only for a minor leg issue and that pain was part of an athlete's life. But the concerns didn't go away. She later withdrew from the WTA 125 Catalonia Open due to a minor injury and was seen struggling through matches with taped and strained movement. The whispers around her only grew louder. But what nobody outside her inner circle knew was that just hours before the wildcard announcement, an email had already arrived from the WTA. The subject line was formal and neutral, but the message inside wasn't routine. It advised Eala to withdraw from the Birmingham Open due to fitness concerns after her demanding clay season. There were no threats or ultimatums, just a recommendation framed as player safety. Still, in professional tennis, that kind of advice carries serious weight. For a world number 37 who had recently reached a career high of number 29, Birmingham wasn't just another event. It was a key chance to defend points, gain momentum on grass, and challenge the fatigue narrative around her. Walking away would have meant a drop in rankings and a setback at a crucial point in her season. It would have also put her Wimbledon seeding at risk and shifted control of her career away from people who had never shared a court with her. The WTA's concern wasn't baseless. Eala's 2026 season had been inconsistent, highlighted by a Dubai quarterfinal that pushed her to number 31 and a strong Indian Wells run that lifted her to number 28. But the clay swing told a different story: 3 first-round exits, a withdrawal, and repeated medical timeouts. The numbers were clear, even if the context wasn't. And the question that stayed with her was simple: since when does fatigue mean you can't compete? As the highest-ranked Filipino player in history, she wasn't just playing for herself. She was the first from her country to break the top 50 and defeat multiple top 5 players and Grand Slam champions. Every match carried national attention and expectation. So when the WTA suggested she step aside, it hit differently. Her now famous words, "I'm not injured, I'm tired, and I'm done pretending that I'm not," were later quoted across the tennis world. But at 2 a.m. in her hotel room, they were never meant for the public. It was a private statement to herself, the WTA, and anyone who had ever questioned her stamina. The next morning, the waiver was signed with legal counsel present and no media in sight, just a formal document where a 21-year-old took full responsibility for her body, risks, and career. The WTA didn't intervene. With the waiver in place, they were no longer liable, even if things went wrong on court. They had issued their warning. She had made her choice. When the wildcard announcement followed, the story exploded globally. The tennis world quickly split into 2 sides: those who believed the WTA acted in good faith for player safety, and those who saw it as overreach against an athlete who knew her own limits. Eala later addressed it simply online, acknowledging the concern but standing firm that she was a fighter, even if tired. The response was instant, with support flooding in and the Philippine flag dominating her comments. Filipino fans who had followed her rise from junior prospect to global star responded with one word: Laban, meaning fight. It had been used by leaders during her historic milestones and whispered by her family before matches, and now it became a national rallying cry for her journey. But the controversy was far from over, and neither was the response from the WTA. On May 31, 2026, in Birmingham at 10:43 a.m., the waiver was complete and legally binding. Eala had done what few players ever attempt: directly challenge the governing body and chosen to compete anyway. Still, the real pressure wasn't in private meetings. It was in the public eye, where sponsors, fans, and an entire nation were watching every move, turning a personal decision into a global spotlight. The wildcard announcement came at 9 a.m., and within minutes Eala's name was trending worldwide. It wasn't just because of her ranking or reputation, but because the tennis world already knew the background: the WTA warning, the waiver, and her decision to play anyway. By 10:43 a.m., she posted the statement that set everything off. She wasn't injured, just tired, and no longer willing to let others decide her limits. In just 4 short lines, her message was screenshotted and shared across every platform, dividing fans and players alike. Filipinos rallied behind her with Laban, while international audiences debated whether she was being brave or reckless. Later that evening, in an interview with the Manila Times, she expanded on her frustration, acknowledging the WTA's intentions but rejecting the idea that protection should mean control. She emphasized her experience as a professional since age 15 and her awareness of her own body, ending with an emotional admission that she was tired of pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. She said she was tired of watching other players get praised for pushing through pain while she was told to sit out. She wasn't claiming to be special, just honest, and that honesty shifted the entire conversation. Because beneath the controversy was an uncomfortable reality: Eala wasn't the only player dealing with exhaustion in late May. The clay swing had been brutal, with Roland Garros seeing a surge in retirements and medical timeouts. Top players like Coco Gauff and Elena Rybakina had also spoken about the physical and mental strain of the season. Still, it was the 21-year-old from the Philippines who ended up at the center of the debate. The reaction came fast. Critics called her arrogant for questioning the system, arguing that players outside the top ranks shouldn't challenge governing decisions. Some former players also weighed in with cautious criticism, defending the structure of the sport. But the support she received from within the tennis world carried just as much weight, and it quickly became impossible to ignore. Coco Gauff, the former US Open champion, responded with a simple respect on her Instagram story. Naomi Osaka shared Eala's statement with the caption, "She's not wrong," drawing on her own experiences with pressure and mental health. Then came Billie Jean King, whose voice carried the most weight of all, stating that athletes have always had the right to make decisions about their own bodies, while still urging trust in expert advice. She also publicly acknowledged Eala's courage. The WTA stayed silent, offering no clarification beyond a brief internal reminder that player safety remained its priority. But in the social media era, silence only fueled more debate. Eala's camp made no further comments. They knew the real test was coming on court, not online. With the draw just hours away, attention shifted to Birmingham, an event that was suddenly no longer quiet or routine. The British media had already picked up the story, and the low-profile WTA 125 tournament was turning into a global talking point. The Birmingham Open, usually overshadowed by bigger grass court events, suddenly became the center of the tennis world. Ticket sales surged, press interest exploded, and reporters all wanted the same thing: a comment from Eala. She stayed silent. That night, she posted a single photo on Instagram, standing alone on center court at Edgbaston Priory Club, empty seats stretching into the dark, her racket bag over her shoulder, eyes fixed ahead. The post went viral instantly. In the comments, one verified account stood out, Emma Raducanu, simply writing, "See you in the final." It turned the narrative again. Two major champions, both wildcard stories in their own right, now framed as rivals on a collision course. Birmingham was no longer a quiet WTA 125 event, it had become a spotlight stage for a much bigger story. By June 7, 2026, center court was set. 7 days, 6 matches, one controversial waiver, and a player who had chosen to compete on her own terms. The final of the 2026 Birmingham Open had arrived, and Eala walked onto center court not as a questioned wildcard, but as the tournament's top seed and main attraction. Across the net stood the top seed who had cruised through the draw, while Eala had survived long 3-set battles and tiebreaks that tested her endurance at every stage. The stadium was packed, with a strong Filipino crowd waving flags and chanting "Laban" echoing through the stands. The opening set was intense, with Eala's movement and shot-making pushing her through long rallies and physically draining exchanges. Despite everything, she took the first set 6-3, showing control and determination. But the match wasn't over. In the second set, fatigue began to show. Her first serve percentage dropped, and the intensity that carried her through the first set started to slip as her opponent raised the level. Her footwork slowed for just a moment, enough for her opponent to break twice and move ahead 4-1 in the second set. From the stands, the questions returned: maybe the WTA had been right, maybe this was too much. But Eala didn't fold. She reset, found another gear, and started playing with something beyond conditioning, pure resistance. Every rally felt like a response to doubt, every point tied to something bigger than the scoreboard. The momentum slowly shifted as she broke back, held serve, and broke again until the set was level at 5-5. The top seed began to crack under pressure, unforced errors creeping in as the crowd rose with every point. At 6-5, with the stadium on its feet and flags waving in a blur of red, blue, and yellow, Eala reached match point, one final chance to finish what had become more than just a final. One point would define everything. The serve came in, and Eala returned it with a sharp cross-court angle that pulled her opponent wide off the court. The reply came back short, just enough to attack. She stepped in, full commitment, and drove a clean winner down the line. 6-3, 7-5. She dropped to the grass, racket falling beside her as she stared upward, taking in what she had just done: her first grass court title, her first WTA trophy since 2025, and a victory that had become bigger than the match itself. The stadium exploded. Not polite applause, but raw, emotional noise. Fans embraced, some in tears, as the moment spread far beyond Birmingham. In the Philippines, her family watched in silence and emotion as history unfolded. During the trophy ceremony, she paused with the silver cup in her hands before speaking into the microphone. She acknowledged the WTA, her doubts, and her fight, but ended with a simple message: "This is for the Philippines. Laban always." The crowd roared again. And in that moment, the story stopped being about controversy and became about a champion who refused to step away. Laban, the Tagalog word for fight, had become her mantra, her identity, and her answer to every doubt thrown her way. In the post-match press conference, Eala was asked directly about the WTA's advice to withdraw. She didn't avoid it or soften her words. She acknowledged the organization's intent to protect players, but made her stance clear: protection should never become control, and she trusted her own understanding of her body over external judgment. She then added that the victory was not only personal, but for every athlete who had been told they weren't ready, arguing that readiness is decided by the player, not the system. The WTA responded the next morning with a brief, formal statement congratulating her on the win, while reiterating that players' safety remained its top priority. When pressed about the waiver, fitness concerns, and whether policies would change, the organization declined further comment, repeating only its standard position. There was no acknowledgement of controversy from the WTA, no admission that they might have been wrong, just a clean, official congratulations and a reminder that player safety remained their priority. But the tennis world didn't stay quiet. Coco Gauff posted a single raised fist emoji on her story. Naomi Osaka shared Eala's speech clip with a message praising her honesty. Billie Jean King added a statement highlighting how athletes have always had to fight for control over their own careers, congratulating Eala on inspiring a new generation. And still, the bigger question remained: who really controls an athlete's career? Was Eala reckless for ignoring guidance, or brave for trusting herself over the system meant to protect her? No one could answer it with certainty. But one thing was clear: if she had stepped aside, none of this moment would exist. And for Eala, the answer had already been written on the grass in Birmingham.